Welcome. All right, here we are. I'm going to announce the beginning of the call. It's Monday, October the 25th. And this is Jim and Jori with the Open-Hearted Practice Group, where we've been working on the Pathways to Liberation Matrix of Self-Assessment. This is our fourth week in a series that could last for a while because there's 28 of these skills that we are exploring on a weekly basis. Some skills will take more than a week to really, we could probably spend a year on each skill, to tell you the truth. There's so much depth available in this list of skills. And so we're really glad that you're here. Today, we're going to be covering the topic of feelings awareness. And Jori, how are you?
Well, I am a little bit tired. It was a challenging day in some ways, and I got to have a little hike at the end of the business part of it. So I renewed myself doing that. And I'm glad to be hanging out here with you.
Thanks. I'm glad to be hanging out here with you too. If you're here for the first time, we extend a especially warm welcome to you. It's always a mystery to me how people find us, but we're really glad that you do. Right now, we have 48 people on the call. Typically, lately, we've been getting around 80, just so you have some kind of a frame. The way that we set up the sessions is we have a few different sections. Like this is the kind of introduction part. And then we will do what's called a self-connection exercise, which is like a NVC style meditation or contemplation, where we invite you to explore some part of your own direct experience. Then we'll do a small group check-in. So Jori will be dividing people up into small groups, and we'll give you the chance to meet some new people that maybe you've never met before. It's pretty much a random process. And unless you identify that you speak and prefer to work in another language, which you can do by changing your name. You can make that.
Yeah, and I would add to that, if you are willing also, it may not be your preference, maybe you have neither preference, but if you do speak a different language, that could be helpful to some others for whom English is not their first language. So if you're willing to put that language there also, you might be contributing to someone else as well as yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Jori. And then after the self-connection exercise, we'll come back and regather together as a group, have a kind of a lesson with some other practices, today focused on feelings awareness, and then more small group work to kind of harvest and experience what you've learned so far. Then we'll come back at the very end of the call and I'll get back together again. We stay here for about 2 hours. So we'll go from now until 6:30 in Hawaii, which is, we're about 3 hours, we're currently 3 hours earlier than Pacific time. So I know some of you are here late. If you need to go early, that's fine. People come and go as they please. We really want you to follow your own needs. And we don't want you to do it unless you're really enjoying yourself. That's the main thing. So yeah. Let's go ahead. Anything else?
And I just want to confirm that that's part of what we're actually doing here, is to try and find ways that we can lead our lives that meet more needs at less cost to other needs.
Yeah, thanks, Jori. So one last request, if you're here and you're a registered certification candidate or experienced practice group leader, please put the letters CC in front of your name. So when Jori divides the groups, she can spread the experience around in case there's a need for support or questions from more experienced people for the newcomers.
And I wanted to again say, for those of you who have joined in the last few minutes, that if you do not want to be in a breakout room, put an equal sign in front of your name to the left. Okay, thank you.
And if you don't, yeah. Great, thanks, Jori. So let's go ahead and do a self-connection exercise. For this, you don't need to try to take notes or anything because you're really just going to be paying attention to your own direct experience. So let's just start. This will also be like a review of the last 2 weeks. So if you have, or last 3 weeks, if you haven't been here, we'll touch on the other skills that we've been learning about and practicing. So just begin by getting present, practicing presence. And the best way I know of to do that is to just simply notice that you're breathing. You don't have to try to change your breath or do anything about it. Just tune in to this simple, mostly unconscious act. Your body's breathing for you. And imagine that you're just really interested in that breath process. So you notice the air coming in through the tip of your nose, through your mouth. You feel your lungs expand, your belly expand to make room for the air. Then when you exhale, you just notice your body just relaxes, just naturally. You're present to the breath. If your eyes closed, you can go ahead and reopen them again, because the next part of the exercise is to practice the skill of observing. Most of us lead with vision, not all of us, but most of us lead with vision. That's our primary sense of perception. Of course, we have 4 other senses of perception too, but we'll just start with seeing. And I'm guessing most of you are looking at a computer or some other device at a Zoom call. And just relax your gaze a little bit and let your eyes go wherever they want to go. So you can look around the space that you're in. And rather than trying to decide where you look, you can just let your eyes go where they want to go for a change. So you can just relax your will. Just go along for the ride, practicing again presence. What are your eyes looking at? What are you present to? And then you can close your eyes. And that, for most of us, that will awaken more the sensation, the perception of hearing, perhaps the other perceptions. Just notice what you hear right now. Just allow yourself to be present to whatever sounds are coming into your experience. And notice that it's you that's present. The experiences come and go. What you see or hear or smell or taste or touch, those are constantly changing, but you're always here present to something. And then we'll shift our focus to our bodies. And just notice first that you have feet. Almost everybody has feet, not everybody, of course. Almost everybody has feet. Just notice that if you got them, notice that you have them. And notice where they are and where they touch the earth or touch something. And then notice what it feels like from inside your body, so to speak. What's the sensation like in your feet? Maybe it's a tingle, or maybe there's some warmth or coolness. Maybe there's a sense of stress or relaxation. Whatever it is, just notice it. And then go up the right leg. Choose your right leg and just gradually walk up your right leg and just check into your whole right leg, looking for any sense of a sensation. Maybe something's tight or sore or painful or relaxed, whatever it is that you notice in your right leg. And then you're up at your waist. And then go back down to your left foot and follow that path up with the same presence, same awareness of sensation in your left leg. Not trying to change anything, just simply noticing sensations that are present for you. If you have a name for the sensation, that's great. If you don't, that's also great. I know I'm going too slow for some of you and probably too fast for some of you, but here we are now back at the waist. Just feel your belly. Let yourself just tune into your belly, noticing any sensations that you notice there. Maybe it feels tight or loose, or maybe numb. Maybe you don't feel anything in your belly. Maybe there's another word that describes the sensations that you're having in your belly. Then gradually move up your body to your solar plexus, the area where your rib cage comes together. And then your heart, your chest. And then just expand awareness of your sensations down both arms at the same time. All the way down to the fingertips and then back up to your heart. Just noticing and attending to your body. If you notice something that's painful or tight, you could choose to empathize with it, just acknowledge it, give it some warmth, some care. If that body part has a request, like to stretch or something like that, feel free to honor that request if you want to. And then up into your throat. And your face. Often we carry stress in our face, so just notice if there's stress in your face. You don't have to do anything about it. You could if you wanted to, but noticing it is such an important part of this nonviolent communication process, to notice these sensations. And then pretty soon you'll find yourself at the top of your head. And then get a sense of all the sensations in your body. And your whole body is one sensation. It's a vibration or a tingle or a sense of warmth or coolness or quivering or something else, whatever word you would use to describe it. And if your eyes have been closed, you can let them open if you'd like. And we have grown since I closed my eyes. We almost doubled, at least 50% more. We've got 75 people here now. Jori has, at least she's in the process of making small groups of 3 or 4. And what we would invite you to do in the small group is to introduce yourself and to answer 2 questions that Marshall said were the whole basis of Marshall being Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication. Marshall said all of NVC could be summed up by answering 2 questions. How are you? And what would you like? So how are you right now after that self-connection exercise? And what would you like today? What needs are you hoping to meet by being here taking some of your precious time to hang out with us today. So everybody have about 2 or 3 minutes. We'll do this for, there'll be a little timer in the upper the upper right-hand corner of your screen. It'll count down from 9 to 0, and then at 0, you'll get 2 extra minutes to finish up anything. So it'll be a total of 11 minutes. So Jori, if you would set the timer for 9 plus 2. And whenever you're ready, we'll see you back here in 11 minutes. Jori, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
I'm going to open up the rooms, and some of you have come in since I started doing this, so I'll have to add you as we go. So if you come in the middle of the self-connection exercise, please be patient, and we'll put you into a room as quickly as possible. And having said that, I do believe we are ready. Whoops. Someone just put a double equal sign in front of their name, indicating they wanted to be idea.
Okay.
Yeah, so folks will be back in about 45 seconds now.
And yes, these are recorded and then posted for future reference for people.
Juliana, thank you for sending out the notice every week. You let all of our friends in India know about this. I really appreciate it.
I want to thank you for just doing this for us every week. It's
my pleasure. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't play. This is one of the highlights of my week. Jori and I have been doing practice forever, so it would be.
I didn't hear what you said, Jim. Would you say it again?
Me? I said we've been doing these practice groups, it seems like forever, and I wouldn't do it if it wasn't play. Here comes everybody back. All right.
Ah, there they are. Wow, you got them faster than I did. Yeah, so welcome back. I see a lot of smiles mostly. And so I'm hoping that this group supported you in some ways. And I would love to hear from a few people about how you are right now and anything that you would like to either celebrate or mourn from your group or whatever. And let's see, Siva, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to celebrate and mourn. Which do you want first?
That's whatever's alive in you about it.
Okay, well, both are alive. I want to mourn first. Mourn, you know, it used to be that I could just click and come, and now there's this barrier of payment, and I don't want to go through Facebook or Google or any other entity in order to pay. It's the dysfunction of our world nowadays. So that's my mourn. Okay.
And are you talking about being able to contribute here in this class or in general?
Money. I'm talking about money.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, what I should have done, what I wanted to do, which I didn't do, was to just send you a check for a bunch of money. Because I totally understand that you need to make a living at this game. It's the best game in town, and why shouldn't you make a living off of it? I totally agree with that. But
well, thank you for your care and wanting to contribute. And
yeah, and thanks for hearing it that way. Yeah. Now, what is?
You said you wanted to celebrate something also. That's my
yes, by the way. Okay, that's what I want to celebrate. I want to celebrate that even though I wanted to be in a room with my old buddies, my new buddies also. I celebrate the awareness that is that fear is translated into hate. We see somebody and we think they're hateful, but we need to be asking, how did you get into that state of mind? We have to go and ask and say, what's behind your hatred? What fears, plural, are behind your hatred? That's what we have to ask.
Thank you. This is the world that I want to live in also, where we can move toward, not just away. And I want to acknowledge I move away sometimes just because I don't have the juice for it, but it's the world I want to live in. Thank you, Siva. And we'll go to Rob and then Vera after that.
Yeah, hi. With one other person in the group, they were feeling, I think, anxiety they were noticing. And I was stimulated for something I went to today. And it was just sort of that morning that, yeah, you can feel these things, but where's the resolution? I would really like some resolution and just to have happiness and good feelings. But it seems like the game is the bittersweet of despair and a little bit of misery. So yeah, I'm just mourning that.
Yeah. Yeah, to be able to have not only the skills, but the perseverance to address all those pieces. Thank you, Rob.
And to have the magic of it change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Sounds
you.
like a deep desire for well-being for everybody involved.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happiness. Yes. I'm good.
And then Vera?
Yeah, hello, good morning to all. I think I'm more to share my experience that I'm challenging myself between doing and being. So wherever there's an impulse to do, I'm just preventing and just see what's happening and being. So I think that is very interesting journey. And I just had listening to a Vedanta recording of mindfulness before the class. It was very, very mindfully navigating experience. And this gym meditation, grounding exercise has further deepened me into my body. And then with the group, it's further, arrived and landed much more deeper. So I think this effortlessness and do nothing and just be and just flow with the life, that is beautiful. I'm a self-witness to it, and I can testimony and certify that it truly matters and works. Thank you so much. I struggle to speak, but I think there's much more emotion and deepened awakening and awareness within my body that I fail to express the beauty of the being in this moment through this grounding exercise. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, and I join you in this path. And Sudha?
Yeah, hi. I thought I would share something that I experienced in the awareness exercise, and which came as a bit of a surprise to me, because when I began the exercise, I could feel some sort of unease in my belly, and I was feeling faintly nauseous. And I was in my thoughts thinking, what happened and why is it that I'm experiencing this? And then as I went through the exercise and I reached the belly and I reached this thing, all I said is, I see you and I hear you. And it's sort of dissolved. So I wanted to celebrate that as something that is that it's the simplicity of it sort of took me by surprise. So that's what I'd like to share and celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudha, because this is such an important piece I know in my life, to acknowledge, acknowledge, acknowledge. Not only do I do that and try and support my connection with other people, but also in my own being. So thank you for sharing that. It's a very powerful part. All right. So Jim, back to you.
Sure. I'm curious. The last 3 weeks we've been covering the first two skills of what's called the Pathways to Liberation Matrix of Self-Assessment. We covered presence and observing. And we have just a few minutes here to just check in to find out if anyone has anything that you would like to say about your experience of working with these skills the last couple of weeks. Anybody want to share? Just raise your hand or put something in the chat. When you think about presence and observing, what are you noticing? Especially if you're noticing a difference with your practice. Go ahead, Kelly.
I have been I've been really aware of presence in so many conversations when I slow down a little bit and I don't know, come back to the present, so to speak. But then I'm able to really remember presence. And that's made such a difference in conversations. Just, I don't know, somebody was talking and getting all worked up about political stuff. And instead of mentally resisting, I was just practicing presence, and it was so much better. It felt like kind of the jujitsu or whatever, where you use their energy to just roll with the punches and yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, I love hearing that. It's great when it works that well, huh?
Yeah. Thank you.
But just to even be able to connect to that experience can wake you up any moment when things go awry like that. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks. Holly?
Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Yesterday morning I was with a group. I'm assisting in a hiking class, wilderness trekking class is what it's called, and it's all made up of these young people. They're younger than I am, and they're so young I can't really tell how old they are. I mean, I thought they were like college students, but I found out that they're not. They're like professors and things like that, and it's like they have these professional careers that they've been in a long time, and they're all talking so fast, and I couldn't follow the conversations. It's not like this group. We come here and we're like all talking about our hearts and what we feel like, and that's what I really resonate with. So I was sitting there trying to act normal and trying to act like I was kind of following, but I had no idea what they were talking about. I mean, they're all talking so fast to each other. And the presence that was in me was that I could feel in my body some shame, because I felt kind of stupid, actually. I thought, God, I don't know if I'm senile or what's going on, but I can't tell what they're talking about. And, but I just noticed in me, and I stayed so present with myself, and I just allowed it to be. Whereas before, I probably would have gone into some sort of shame spiral. But I just noticed it was just kind of in the surface. And I mean, I was just like, okay, well, that's the way it is.
Yeah, that's the beauty of presence, is it tends to help us to get open to whatever happens next.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Holly.
Beautiful.
I'm going to come back to you, Virta, if there's time, since you already spoke, if that works for you. And I want to hear Juliana and then Beth, and then we'll finish with Sue. So we have time for practice. Go ahead, Juliana.
Thank you. So for the first time, I had this experience, and it's just continuous. It's just now so internalized and embodied in me, of being able to anchor myself and center myself just with my breath and come back to the present moment. For the first time, the breath has become so powerful for me. And I know that when I breathe, I am breathing in life, and it's connecting me to my source of life within me. And it's such a moment of calm and peace and presence and self-connection. I can't explain it. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliana.
Thank you so much.
Beth or Don?
I've been enjoying these testimonies. I loved Holly. What you said was so right on. I just wanted to share that today I had a moment of stress. I was trying to get some letters in the mail, and Don went for a walk. And when he came back, I was just agitated. I was hungry. And he said, well, what's your priority? And I said, 0 step. I gotta have something to eat.
Do your 0 step. And you did. And
he called, yeah.
Thank you, Beth. And I'll mention the 0 step when I start the lesson, in case that's a new concept for you. Thank you, Beth. Anything you wanted to say, Don?
No, I was just going, yippee-yay, wonderful.
Great. And Sue.
Unmute. Okay, there we go. I don't know exactly. I just know that working with you guys is helping me integrate years of yoga and mindful practice and breathing practices. And today we had a big storm and the air was just so exquisite. And so I really liked that you reminded us. And then I really liked how Juliana was talking about, I liked what you had to share about how precious that is. I have been stopping and using my breath all throughout the day instead of just my little practice, and using it in little ways that I've learned. And I had kind of a little funny thing to share with you guys. I was in a meditation group that does presence practice, but it's run by a comedian who's very quick, and he has a stage practice. And when I came here, I was disoriented. It was so slow that I was like, what are they? I couldn't hardly stay in the room, but my heart was staying here. So I kept coming back. And I was sharing with somebody, you guys reminded me of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where if you remember where he would ask his puppets and he'd give them time to think and to talk. And I said, I'm in Jim and Jori's neighborhood now. And I have to learn to slow down and breathe and feel. And I love it, but it's very unusual for me. So
yeah, I want to acknowledge that there are various rhythms, and sometimes the rhythm is moving in different directions in 2 different bodies. And so
thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. All right, thank you, Sue, and everybody else who shared. Gonna move into the lesson now and share my screen with you. So today the class is on feelings awareness. It's the 3rd skill of the 28 skills on the matrix. And so someone mentioned the 0 step, so I want to say what that means first. 0 step refers to, it's a word that was made up by a friend of ours about 20 years ago to describe the intention and attention of nonviolent communication. The intention we'll get to in a few minutes, and the attention is in the present moment. So that's why we start with presence, because it's the foundational skill, but then allows us to move into observing, to see what's actually happening, and to be able to distinguish what's actually happening from any evaluations that we might have about what's happening. There's nothing wrong with evaluations. The whole rest of NVC is like a new way of evaluating things. And rather than evaluating things in terms of good or bad or right or wrong, we're evaluating things based on needs. So that's that. And now we've set the table for us to start exploring our feelings. And so this is how the authors of the Pathways to Liberation, which were Jori and me and two other trainers, Jake Gottwals and Jack Lehman, this is how the definition that we came up with. Not that it's the right definition, but it's the one that we used. The ability to identify and experience our physical sensations and emotions. So that's the takeaway for today. We want to sharpen all of our skills at noticing and naming our emotional experience. So I'll just put this on the screen and let you read it for yourself. These are like the definition, and then 4 different levels of competence with this skill. So as you take in these words, you just might notice yourself having an opinion or an evaluation about how you're doing on this skill. That's okay. Just notice that you're doing that. Maybe there's a sense of mourning, that this is hard for you, or maybe there's a sense of celebration that you're making progress, or that you're more fully integrated with this ability to be able to recognize and accept whatever your emotional experience is. Wherever you are, it's not a straight line with any of these skills. Believe me, there are times when I am completely numb to my feelings. And even though I've been practicing NVC and for 20 years, and things like NVC for 20 years before that, sometimes I just numb out. That's my body doing its thing. And we'll explore more of that over the next few weeks. So this is where we're at. Something happens, you know, we're present to it. We're observing that something happens. So maybe, you know, you glance at a headline, or maybe somebody says something to you, or maybe you see something happen while you're shopping, and then there's a feeling that arises. And the way that we've all been conditioned, at least I can only speak for myself, the way that I was conditioned was that my feelings were caused by my observation. We're going to question that hypothesis, and we're going to see if there's something else that might be going on. And as we continue to go, but let's just talk about feelings first. So there's some building blocks that we talk about in NVC. Feelings is like a basket that contains 2 important concepts. One would be sensation, and the other would be emotions. So these are like the building blocks of feelings, are sensations and emotions. And we make a distinction in NVC between these 2 things, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. So let's focus on sensation first. So you can just tune into your body like we did in that initial exercise. And as you just experience your entire body, you'll notice that you're somewhere on a continuum between pain and pleasure. And if you're at the far left end of that continuum, you're probably not here. You're probably on some sort of medication, because the pain can be, for human beings, pain can be completely unbearable. And we need to figure out how to get help to address the pain. And you probably, hopefully you're more at the pleasure end here, that you're having fun being here on this continuum. So that's one continuum to pay attention to about sensation, to constantly checking in. Is it painful or is it pleasurable? Not that one's right and one's wrong. They're both really, really important to experience. We can't survive without either, without both, I mean. So the other way to look at sensations is in terms of how aroused we are. So arousal is kind of a fancy word that talks about how activated we are. What's the flow of energy in our body? And it can be anywhere from low to high. And my guess is that our friends that are here from the East Coast or Europe, your sense of arousal is probably lower than those of you who are here in Hawaii, where it's still just 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And so our arousal patterns tend to follow the sun, and we tend to get more aroused when the sun is out and less aroused when it gets dark. But that's not always the case. But that's just one way of noticing how excited am I, would be another way of looking at it. So if you combine those two things, you end up with a two-dimensional way of looking at what we're feeling, what we're sensing, the sensations that we're having from moment to moment. And so certain things can show up on this continuum. So if we have high arousal and pain, some words that would describe that would be upset or distressed, freaked out, so forth. If we have high arousal and lots of pleasure, we might feel elation or feel thrilled or ecstatic or happy, something like that. If we're kind of in the middle of the arousal and we're feeling pain, we might just be miserable, just displeased with life, kind of languishing. Languishing is a great new feeling word that I recently connected with. The pandemic has stimulated, and the headline was something like, the pandemic has stimulated an epidemic of languishing. It's where we're just not happy with the way things are, but we're not in so much pain that we become overwhelmed with it. And when our arousal is in the middle and our pleasure is higher, we feel gratified or pleased, like after a job well done, for example. And then if our pain level is high and our arousal is low, that's when we get lethargic, depressed, into a kind of freezy business where we don't really want to do anything. And if we have low arousal and the sense of pleasure, we might feel serene and calm. Now, the cool thing for me about these sensations is that everybody's got them. We're actually born with the ability to have sensations. We don't need to be educated to have sensations. We just have the innate hardware and software to sense. So nobody has to teach a baby to be more or less aroused. If you've been with a newborn baby, you'll notice that they come out pretty aroused, and then eventually they get tired and they go to sleep. So I think Jori's made new groups for us that should be slightly bigger than the last groups. And here you have two tasks. Your first task is to find a volunteer who's willing to type up some notes, like in an email. And so that's your first thing, is to elect a note taker. And the note taker will just be writing down the list of sensations that you guys come up with. So we're going to take about, what did I put in here, 10 minutes, I think, for you to explore, to do a round. So there's like 4 or 5 people in a group. So if it's my turn, 4 of you are listening to me, and I just check what sensation is alive. Well, I noticed, like, I want to cough. And then we would go to the next person and they would say what their sensation was. And we go around and around and around until everybody, until the whole time is up. We'll do this for about 10 minutes and see how long of a list of sensations that you can create. If the sensation that you're experiencing is already been named, then you can just name another sensation that you have experienced. So I'm going to put all of these instructions into the chat so that you have them. When you go to your small group. Excuse me.
And the rooms have been mixed around and they're ready to go. They're groups of 4 and 5, and there'll be 10 minutes and then 2 extra minutes. You don't have to press anything to come back. I know it's tempting when they say they're closing, but you don't have to press anything. You'll have 2 more minutes.
All right.
Okay.
See you in
And
10
if you
minutes.
weren't part of the last breakouts and you've come since then, just give me a moment and I'll put you into a room. But everybody else is ready to go.
These are all physical
Physical sensations. Yeah. What physical sensations are you noticing in your body?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Bring that clarity, John. Okay. So here we go. Groups of 4 and 5, ready to go. Bye.
Okay. All right, welcome back, everybody. You didn't really go anywhere, but it just seemed like you did. So those of you who took notes, if you email them to me, I'll do a little magic with them during the next breakout room. So
did you put your email in there, Jim?
I did. I put it in the chat. nvctrainer@gmail.com.
Great.
And so just to save time, I'd love to hear maybe from, actually, unless there's somebody who's dying to say something about this small group, if there's something really burning in you, otherwise I'm worried we won't have time for the next exercise. Just raise your hand if you really need to say something. Okay. All right.
I need to ask you real quick, Jim. How large are the next groups?
4.
4. Okay.
Okay. So now
before you do this, just prep for the next group. If there is anyone here who speaks Mandarin or Japanese, please, and wants to be in one of those groups, please put that in front of you and behind your name.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jim, it looks like John was raising his hand.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Oh, I'm just laughing because our poor note taker did it by hand.
Oh. Okay. And Kristen, somebody thinks you might have something to say.
Oops.
Kristen, is there something you'd like to say?
No, thank you. Sorry, I was just waving at John when he had his hand up.
Hi, Kristen.
Yeah, so someone asked for
Hi, John.
Somebody asked me for the brief answer for the difference in sensation and emotion. And so I will do that next week because I want to make sure you have this chance to practice, but that's an important piece. So we will actually probably take 2 weeks to do the whole feelings thing because it's a very deep subject and lots of opportunity. So now those of you who might be new to nonviolent communication might be curious about what's the purpose of this nonviolent communication stuff. So I'll just give you the purpose that I understand from Marshall Rosenberg, the man who started it. The purpose of nonviolent communication is to create a quality of connection that inspires compassionate giving and receiving. The purpose of it, I'll put it in the chat too. The purpose of NVC is to create a quality of connection that inspires compassionate giving and receiving. So you'll notice what it's not. It's not a way of getting what you want or changing the other person. It's unless that change comes out of compassion. So that will become clearer as we wind through all of these lessons. But I want to focus for the next exercise on the experience of joy that every one of you has likely had when you gave a gift without any expectation of receiving something back. That's what Marshall meant when he talked about compassionate giving. So think of a time when you gave something to somebody else without having any, it's not a deal. It just came from your own beautiful urge to contribute to life. And the contribution could be to yourself. The contribution could be to a dear a dear one, a family member, a partner. The gift could be to someone that you'd never seen except the one time that you gave them the gift. Or it could be a gift that you give to life itself, like to an animal, or even an insect, or a plant, or a mushroom, something else that we share the planet with. Maybe you gave a gift without expectation of return. So I'll give you an example that I've never actually shared with anybody that I can think of, but it just popped in my head. There was a time in our life when Jori and I had our own retail business. And we were making really good money in this. This is back in the 80s. And we were making good money. I was feeling very prosperous and generous. And so we ended up one night going to the movies. And I went to get some popcorn and drinks and so forth to enjoy the movie. And then when the guy told me how much it was, I gave him a $100 bill. And I said to him, "Keep the change," smiled and walked away. So I don't even have any idea what his reaction was, but I know what went on in me, that I felt like I was so totally in a flow of what now I would call compassionate giving and receiving, but I was like in a flow of abundance where there wasn't any scarcity left in my consciousness in that moment. So it felt so joyful to give this young kid who's working, maybe his very first job, selling popcorn at the movie theater, to suddenly give him $100 or whatever was left out of the popcorn and Coke money, and imagining that how that might have contributed to his life. And even when I think about it right now, I feel warm, even though it was 40 years ago. I feel warm and a sense of wonder. What was it like to receive that gift out of nowhere from a complete stranger? So that's my story. So the idea now is you take 5 minutes and sketch out an outline of a story when you gave from the heart. So sketch out a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Once upon a time, this happened, the end of a time when you gave from the heart. Do you have a question for clarity, John?
Yes. So you're saying, giving from the heart or without the expectation of receiving anything in return. And I'm wondering how that works with the idea that everything we do is in service of a need. And you did get something in return, for example, in your example of joy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the distinction is that you weren't motivated by receiving. The effect of compassionate giving is that you will receive something, but it's not what motivates you to give. Does that help?
Sort of, but if everything is in service of a need, what need were you servicing by giving that? And is that not the expectation that you're going to get something in return, no matter what you do,
you
anytime
will,
ever?
That's true. That's true. But just tell the story anyway. Just tell the story anyway. Just pick a time when you gave something and maybe you did receive something, but it just wasn't your intention. So I'm making a distinction. Between giving from the heart and giving to make a deal. So if a guy comes over to work on my yard and he wants $25 an hour and he gives me 4 hours and I give him $100, then that's not compassionate giving. It's a business deal, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful to have business deals. And but if he came by one day and I reached out in my pocket, gave him a big hug, and said that here's $100, take the day off, but I didn't have any expectation that he owed me anything, that would be a gift from the heart. That would be the distinction that I'd make. And there's actually 3 hands up. And unless it's a question of clarity for the exercise, I'd rather you spend the time writing. So check to see if you need clarity, and then I'll check. Zohar, you have a question for clarity? I can't hear you, Zohar. You're muted still. I still can't hear you, Zohar.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I have a question. I can think about so many times that I was giving from my heart because I was thinking about the other person and his needs, and I just wanted to give, but I did want something back. I wanted to feel a connection. So I don't know where it fits, you know.
So go ahead and choose the one that works for you. The one that you sense was given without a hook.
So if I'm giving in order to feel a connection, this is a hook. It's not unhooked.
I would call it a hook. So maybe pick something like a random act of kindness for a person you'll never see again. Like you pick up a pencil they dropped. That would be an act of compassionate giving and receiving.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. Ziva?
Thank you. I feel with John, I feel especially with Zohar because of her name. I've just begun to study the Zohar. So the way I think it bridges between my feeling with John articulated my feeling, but I think of the world as you give, so you shall receive.
Sure.
So I put it out there. Why? Because I want to connect with whatever the spiritual surroundings, so that it can come back to not only me but everybody.
Yeah.
So
pick one of those stories. Pick one of those stories, Eva. Just pick one of those stories. Write down a couple of notes, and then you'll get a chance to tell it in just a minute.
Okay.
One more minute to prepare for your storytelling. And Jori, set the timer for 18 minutes. So in your small group, everyone will have about 4 or 5 minutes to tell your story. And this is your chance to practice speaking from the heart. You're going to be sharing something that is meaningful to you. And so you just do the best you can to speak from your heart and tell your story, and knowing that everyone else will be in silent empathy for you. No one's going to try to tell you whether they liked it or they didn't like it or give you any feedback. They're just going to be practicing presence. They're just going to be present with you as you tell your story. You have about 3 or 4 minutes to tell your story. If you need that long, maybe it only takes 2 minutes like mine. And then you go to the next person. So make sure that everybody in your group first has a chance to tell their story, about 2 to 3 minutes per person. And everybody who's not speaking is listening with silent empathy. So only one person speaking at a time. Then if you get done with that and there's still time left, then talk about what it was like to be in this group with each other. What was it like to celebrate compassionate giving? So those would be the 2 things that you'll be doing. 1, tell your story. 2, what's it like to tell your story to other people who are listening with empathy? And we'll see you back here in 20 minutes.
Okay, and the English speaking groups are 3 or 4. And if you have come in or dropped off and come back, just be patient. I'll put you in one of the rooms. Okay, open.
Okay. Okay, what was that like? Siva?
I want to share something with everybody, which I did not say in my group. I went to, I think this was about my 4th seminar of the day. Well, here it's 9:13 p.m. So the first seminar that I went to was, I think it was from Israel. And that was about, it was a intro free seminar about how to have a better marriage. So the lesson for today, the free lesson was every human being has both feminine and masculine needs. The feminine needs are the need to be wanted. And the masculine need is the need to be needed. Or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know, I forget. But we, as human beings, we have a need to be needed and a need to be wanted.
That makes
both.
Sense.
We need.
Yeah. Yes, of course. And in this moment, we have a limited amount of time, so I'd like to stay focused on what we were just covering.
Well,
So,
that's what we were covering. I mean, it's always that in different disguises.
Thank you.
That's my point.
The same thing with different disguises. Thank you. Jennifer.
I wanted to share something that a tendency that 2 of us had in the group. I'll speak for myself, that when I told my story about my pleasure and joy in doing this thing, I felt shame. I felt shame and embarrassment. And the other person, and so I closed down really. And although I was sharing something really deep and very profound and joyful in my heart, I was actually feeling shamed. And I closed off the possible. I was trying to describe afterwards, it felt like I was closing off the possibility of empathy back. So I don't know quite what. It suddenly scared me, really. But one of the other people in the group also had a feeling of shutdown around it and wanting to speak fast and get it over and done with as well. So I'm very intrigued by the fact that we had a shared reality about sharing our joys and pleasures of doing something really compassionate and giving.
Wow, that's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And you used a feeling word that I'd never heard before. I think it might be some British English. Do you remember what you just said? You were feeling?
I said shame, shut down.
Shut down. That was it. Okay, shut down. Okay, thank you. That clarified it for me.
Yeah, that's not foreign to me either. So it's not just British.
I'm always collecting new feeling words. I thought I might have heard something like chuffed or something like that, which is British English.
Imagine several of us have that inner shutdown.
And Jerry.
Hello. What was interesting to me, I had like the opposite reaction, and in sharing the answering the question in my group of what was it like to tell the story, I realized that when I've told the story before, maybe it lasted 10 seconds because I just hit the highlights because I was trying not to appear proud or arrogant about what I did. But in this group, I didn't feel that way because that was the task at hand. So I really felt wholly the love and the compassion and the giving. And I was really able to enjoy it in such a fuller way and feel even more connected because I was being able to share it in that way, as opposed to just touching the highlights. So I thought that was very interesting and almost kind of prompts me to share that type of celebration more with people and not feel like I'm being braggy or something or prideful.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so
Yay.
nourishing. I had a wonderful, wonderful story. Thank you.
Yeah, I imagine you'll find that it's a gift for many.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And
for Margaret?
I don't know if this is what somebody was talking about when they said shame, but I sort of mentioned that growing up in a really religious family, I was always told, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing when you give to charity. It comes from the Bible, Matthew 6:2. But I looked it up, and then it says also, so that your giving may be in secret, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. So I was thinking back to the person who was talking about giving, and then, like, you know, getting back from the universe or whatever. And I had never even realized that was the second part of the quote. I just remembered that you should give without letting your left hand know what your right hand is doing. So anyhow, I felt uncomfortable about sharing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not always the norm. And so I just want to acknowledge that in some cultures, and it doesn't seem okay to do. So thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. That's an important thing for us all to be aware of, the cultural differences and how things may impact us. Thank you. And John?
So my group, everyone shared how they felt really listened to and, you know, felt great. And I said, yeah, I share this really deep stuff and just, you know, got nothing. It fell on dead ears. So it was just, you know, kind of like, I guess I'm done now. Like, so I felt a little, I don't know, like there was this discombobulated by not getting anything back.
Yeah.
And then other people started saying, yeah, I felt that too. Yeah, so.
Interesting. Of course, that makes sense too. Thank you for sharing that. How very human.
And I saw someone raise their hand and then they unraised their hand. So if you raised your hand a second ago, it might have gotten put down by accident. Because we still have time for a few more. I'd love to hear your expressions, because for me, it really meets a need for human connection. To hear what it was like to both. I haven't heard anybody say what it was like to receive these stories. I've heard from the givers. Love to hear what it was like to receive. Go ahead, Preeti. Whatever question you want to answer, go ahead.
Yeah, I in our group, when we were talking about, I kind of firstly I resonated with a few of us who said that there was some discomfort around sharing the things that we have done good. So that made me think about, you know, how we are like we somehow are better with the sharing our problems than sharing our celebrations in some places, at least. Another thing is that, like, you know, I mean, while sharing, one of us mentioned that it was a relief to share things in a group where we know that we won't be getting any feedback, and to be able to just share without you know, the thing of how people are going to respond to this. And as a listener also, you know, just to think about it with silent empathy and seeing how it would be for the other person, and not you know, having this thing of that I'll have to give feedback on this or I'll have to respond to this. And just being present with whatever is happening in the moment for you. That was kind of a comfort in a way, that you will not be that there is no you know, evaluation of it at all. So sometimes not giving feedback or not having to receive feedback is a comfort.
Thank you so much for pointing that out. Someone's needs to be muted here. I can hear her. But thank you so much for pointing that out, because we're so different culturally. We grow up in different cultures where some things are okay and some things aren't, and we're also individual. So that's a really important piece for us to all be conscious of. that things land differently with different people. Thank you. And Tanya?
We just had this greatest happy gratitude fest, being grateful to experience the joy of giving. And each of us had a story that was just a pure joy in being to help someone else or do something for someone else or just say yes, that wonderful open-hearted yes to a request that just, you just feel so great. I feel so grateful to have that sense of joy.
Mm-hmm.
And being in a connected space where I can do an open-hearted yes, and that was really the theme of our group. And it was like, and when we do those gratitude circles and it just gets higher and higher, that was kind of because we kept telling story after story about some great thing that happened when our heart was open. It was just yeah. I'm so, I'm just so grateful to my group it was just a beautiful experience.
Thank you. Yeah, this whole thing, we're focusing on gratitude, and really at the heart of it is to become more and more aware of our feelings, whether they're gratitude, mourning, shock, whatever it is, to become more and more aware and to have that distinction that I think is fairly easy to be aware of when our needs are met and aren't met, based on the feelings that we have. Is it pain or is it a form of pleasure? Thank you.
Francesca?
She just finished?
No, she didn't. Francesca?
That's who just spoke, sweetie.
I did not speak. That was somebody else.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That
Thank
was
you.
Pretty or something like that.
Oh, okay. I was watching you, but your mouth was covered, so I thought it was you.
No.
Okay, go for it.
I thought that the group, the sharing of the things that were done was so heartwarming, so heartwarming. It was like, I know what I do, but I don't really know what other people do. And it felt so heartwarming to hear other people's compassionate giving without wanting something in exchange. So that's what I wanted to share.
Very beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, so Marshall Rosenberg said that what you all told your stories about was about this fulfilling your need for contribution. Marshall called it the most important of all of our human needs. And it was one of the things that drove him to create nonviolent communication. He said he started nonviolent communication because he's trying to answer two questions. What was it that allowed people or supported people in giving from the heart, even in the most difficult of situations? And what is it that disconnects us and disconnects us from that urge to give compassionately? And so as we continue our exploration over the next few weeks, we'll be digging in deep at both of those ends of the spectrum to experience what that urge to contribute is like, and what gets in the way of that urge to contribute in us. And the homework, so to speak, trigger word for some people, but that practice opportunity for the next week is to watch yourself and in this urge to contribute as one of the many sensations and feelings that arise over the course of a day. Just allow yourself to tune in more and more often on what's going on in my body. That would be the answer to the question of feelings awareness. What's going on in the world? That would be the answer to the observing, and to just continually awaken your desire to be more present. And we'll continue the journey next week with a little bit more about feelings and the relationship of thoughts to our emotional experience as well. In the meantime, this is the time during our call when we start to wrap things up. And first thing I do is I promote my book, which is called Pathways to Nonviolent Communication. It's a lot of fun to write. People are telling me it's a lot of fun to read. It's a relatively short book, and it's something that you can use, you can benefit from immediately as soon as you start reading it. And it'd be almost like the textbook for this class. And if you want to buy a whole bunch of copies and give it away to friends, all the money that we're raising through book sales goes to support the organization that Marshall Rosenberg started called the Center for Nonviolent Communication. So we would love it to have that kind of support. And if you'd rather give money directly, we're happy to receive that as well. You can do it through PayPal. You could write a check, like Siva wanted to write us a check. We can put, Joy, if you put our address into the chat, that might be helpful for people who want to just send old-fashioned money. But you can also contribute through PayPal to us, and then we will pay your donations forward to support the work of nonviolent communication. We like to give lots of the money away that we receive, pay it forward, especially to students who live in areas where access to NVC training is beyond their budget. And so we do a lot of scholarship support with the money that you give. We also use the money that you give to support the new social network being built by the Center for Nonviolent Communication, which is now open to trainers and assessors and will someday be open to everybody. So we're also helping with that. And then you can also donate directly to CNBC. So if you're looking for a way to get a tax deduction, that would be a wonderful gift, a way to practice compassionate giving if you would like to give something to support the work of the center. And that's my last little tip before we hear from Jori and say our goodbyes is that I read some research recently about intentional compassionate giving. And so I don't want to turn it into a hook, like I'm going to give it so I can get happier. But just like John and maybe Siva and a couple of other people mentioned, that we benefit from the act of random acts of kindness is often what it's called. And you don't have to do it every day, but the research does say that if you do it once or twice a week, it will shift your experience of positivity. And especially if you savor the giving and then share the story like we did today. Maybe if you don't feel comfortable sharing it with other people, write it down in a journal and share it with yourself. So that would be another way that you could practice. I'm so grateful that you came today and for the support that you have given us and giving us this opportunity to share with you. And Jori, anything you want to say to wrap things up for you?
I'm so glad to be part of this team. It feels like a family to me. I know it's a lot of people, but it just is very heartwarming to be with you here. So thank you for everything you did to support well-being for yourself and everyone else and support connection and growth. And I'm complete. And with that, what I will do is I will reopen the groups. If you want to stay in the group, you can. And if I notice that your partners have left, then I'll move you around to another group. So
Jim, I want to wish you a belated happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, Nikhil-Nanda. Thank you very much. It's funny, 66 feels just like 65. I don't get it. But anyway.
I didn't realize you were such a kid.
I know.
Yeah.
All right.
Happy birthday, dear Jim. Happy birthday, dear Jim. On Wednesday. Happy dear Jim. Happy Jim.
Happy birthday to you. And
many more NBC birthdays.
Well, thank you.
Yippee-yay, Jim.
Thank you very much. What a celebration. Aloha.
Okay, with that, here we go, opening up the rooms.